Fellow Nigerians, the story around Bola Tinubu's double nationality deepens, and Nigerians keep wondering, how did we get here? You might be saying, what is wrong about having double nationality? Is it a crime? Just listen to this.
To another country, because the process of obtaining citizenship of another country, swearing allegiance to another country, which is why it's stated in, I believe, section 138 of the Nigerian constitution that certain elective positions in Nigeria, like the president, are the people who are allowed to run for that office are either people who have no other citizenship but Nigerian citizenship, or if they are dual citizens, they had to have been born in the country of their other citizenship. So what that means is that if you were born in Nigeria, you're a Nigerian citizen, but then you naturalized in another country, you obtained the citizenship of another country, you are precluded. Now, there's a legal argument going on there about, yes, the constitution says this, but we don't necessarily go by what the constitution says. We go by legal precedent, by case law precedent. And apparently there's case law precedents stating that, well, the fact of being a Nigerian citizen in itself might supersede the fact of having obtained citizenship elsewhere. So that's one issue. But the second, and in my opinion, the most important issue here is that on the INEC EC9 declaration, which is a sworn affidavit, so everything is basically on that oath. On that INEC EC9 form, there's a question that asks, have you ever obtained citizenship of another country? It's a very simple question. Have you acquired citizenship of another country? Yes or no? You tick boxes, yes or no. You can see this form on the screen, and he clearly ticked no. He has not acquired citizenship of another country. But here is prima facie evidence that he in fact did acquire citizenship of another country, and fairly recently as well, which is lying on the oath, which is perjury. Perjury under the Nigerian constitution is punishable with 14 years in prison. It's a very serious criminal offense.
So guys, you can see that there is no issue in having double nationality. But the problem is that it is alleged that he filled the INEC form telling INEC that he doesn't have double nationality. So that is where the question mark comes in. Why didn't he want Nigerians to know that he has a double nationality, since it's not a crime? I don't think there was any need for him to hide it. So many people today have double nationality. I think it's a very common thing. Or is it because it has to do with Guinea, so that people will not become suspicious? It baffles me that he refused to declare that he has double nationality, since it's not a crime. So guys, this is where the problem lies. It is alleged that he told INEC that he doesn't have double nationality. I'm going to allow you watch this video in full. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification bell. Please give this video a like so that YouTube can recommend it to others. And let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you.
EC9 declaration. He stated under oath that he had not obtained any other citizenship. Investigative journalist David Hundeyin is joining us today to discuss this latest development on Bola Tinubu's scandals. From his work on the Chicago heroin trafficking ring of the 1990s that had Bola Tinubu forfeit $460,000 to the U.S. Justice Department, to his revelation of the extent of the tentacles of the Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria, David Hundeyin has revealed story after story behind Nigeria's failure to launch. He will also update us on the latest on Peter Obi's ordeal at the UK airports over the Easter weekend. David.
You're muted.
How are you today?
You're muted.
Hey, can you hear me?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, nice to have you.
Yes, I can hear you. You were muted at first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Nice to have you too.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you, and a lot of our viewers are interested in hearing from you. Typically, we start the show by talking about the news of the day, but because you have only 90 minutes, we don't want to waste time. talking about other things, we want to go straight to the story that you broke yesterday, which was about Bola Tinubu being a citizen of Guinea. Can you tell our viewers how you got to this story and how you confirm this story and things like that?
Okay, so obviously, I cannot identify my source.
Of course. No, we're not saying do that.
The
Yeah.
viewer just so the viewer has to take I have or I source. I've actually had this document with me for a number of months, but in an effort to protect the source, because the source insisted that if I put it when they gave it to me, it might have been traceable back to them and might potentially have put their life in danger. So the source insisted I should wait for a certain period of time until something had happened first before putting it out, which is what I did, because obviously I always have to. They used to teach us in school that no story is worth your life or the life of your source. So the protection of the whistleblowers comes first. So I've had it with me since November actually. I've had to sit on it for all these months, just in an effort to protect the source. Now, what these images depict is they're essentially so again, it's difficult to talk about it without potentially putting the identity of the source in jeopardy. So I'm going to try as much as possible to skirt around that issue. But what the images show anyway is a picture of a phone screen, basically, because the source was so paranoid about handing this over that didn't even want to use a direct image in the event that maybe the metadata or something could be tracked. So basically took a picture of a picture, which shows the data page of a Guinean diplomatic passport issued in the name of Bola Ahmed Tinubu with the obvious image of the person we know in Nigeria as the supposed president. This passport was issued in 2015 and its validity ended in 2020. So it's a normal 5-year passport, as you know, the same way we have them in Nigeria. It has all the characteristics of a regular passport that you might be familiar with. Obviously, it's a bit different because it's a diplomatic passport. Unfortunately, I was only able to get the data page. I wasn't able to get the cover page. But if you Google what a Guinean diplomatic passport looks like, kind of like the Nigerian diplomatic passport, it's also red. Now, the implication of the president of Nigeria's president-elect having a Guinean passport, not just a Guinean passport, but a Guinean diplomatic passport. Bear in mind that a diplomatic passport is never issued to anyone who is not a citizen of that country. In fact, the supply of diplomatic passports is so tightly controlled that even if you are a citizen of that country, if you happen to be a dual citizen, you have to go through an enhanced security check before before you be issued a diplomatic passport, and the president or the head of state themselves generally has to be the one to approve that process of issuing a diplomatic to even a dual citizen. How much more so someone who has no connection whatsoever with Guinea, someone who is an absolute foreigner being issued a diplomatic passport. So there are several issues to unpack here. First of all, from the Guinean side, this raises a lot of issues. It's potentially a source of real embarrassment for the Guinean government. There have been several reports that have been written in the past which have made it clear that one of the easiest places in the world to illegally get hold of a passport, legally buy a passport. Now, that's one thing, but getting hold of passports is just another level of controversy. Now, I've also been able to find a number of my sources in the media industry and in the diplomatic space that the former Guinean president, Alpha Conde, was actually, in fact, in the habit of handing out diplomatic passports to his friends and cronies, including non-Guinean citizens. So there's a whole conversation to be had about the Guinean side of this. But moving away from that, more importantly, to the Nigerian side of the conversation, the issue here is twofold. First of all, there is the potential legal issue here of what's the term I'm looking for? The loyalties? No, the term isn't loyalties. There's a particular term I'm looking for. Conflict of interest. Yes, that's the term I'm looking for. Yeah, where essentially you have, or essentially could have, a president-elect who has sworn allegiance to another country, because the process of obtaining citizenship of another country, swearing allegiance to another country, which is why it's stated in, I believe, Section 138 of the Nigerian Constitution that certain elective positions in Nigeria, like the president, um, are the people who are allowed to run for that office are either people who have no other citizenship but Nigerian citizenship, or if they are dual citizens, they had to have been born in the country of their other citizenship. So what that means is that if you were born in Nigeria, you're a Nigerian citizen, but then you naturalized in another country, you obtained the citizenship of another country, you are precluded. Now, there's a whole legal argument going on there about, yeah, okay, yes, the Constitution says this, but we don't necessarily go by what the Constitution says. We go by legal precedent, by case law precedent. And apparently there's case law precedents stating that, well, the fact of being a Nigerian citizen in itself might supersede the fact of having obtained citizenship elsewhere. So that's one issue. But the second, and in my opinion, the most important issue here is that on the INEC EC9 declaration, which is a sworn affidavit, so everything is basically on that oath. On that INEC form, there's a question that asks, have you ever obtained citizenship of another country? It's a very simple question. Have you acquired citizenship of another country? Yes or no? You tick boxes, yes or no. You can see this form on the screen, and he clearly ticked no. He has not acquired citizenship of another country. But here is prima facie evidence that he in fact did acquire citizenship of another country, and fairly recently as well, which is lying on the oath, which is perjury. Perjury under the Nigerian constitution is punishable with 14 years in prison. It's a very serious criminal offense. So that's one thing. And then the wider issue surrounding perjury on Bola Tinubu's INEC EC9 declaration goes back to a story that I published in November last year, published on my platform, West Africa Weekly. That's westafricaweekly.substack.com. And the story was called, Has Bola Tinubu Committed Perjury? The evidence says yes. To be honest, I'm a bit surprised that it seems as if that story is only now coming into sort of public consciousness. It's coming to prominence now, because that story is about 6 months old. I thought everyone had read it at the time. Apparently, I was wrong about. Apparently, most people actually hadn't even heard of it. There are several instances of perjury which were outlined in that story. At the time when I wrote that story, I actually had this passport, but for the reasons I mentioned earlier, I wasn't actually able to include it in the story, to put it out, because of this. So there were other things that were mentioned. So, for example, the university that Bola Tinubu claims to have attended, which is Chicago State University, was subpoenaed. Right, a subpoena is a legal document which is issued under the authority of a court, which compels the recipient to release all information regarding the subject that is quoted on the subpoena. So basically subpoenaed Chicago State University, Richard J. Daley College, which was then known as Southwest College, Deloitte, where he once claims to have started his career as an accountant, Anderson Tax, where he also claims to have worked previously. Subpoenas were sent out to all these organizations to basically verify the claims made on his INEC EC9 declaration and claims he had made elsewhere at other points in time on other INEC forms and in public spaces. And the information that came back in response to the subpoena from Chicago State University showed that the transcript from Southwest College, which was used by a certain Bola A. Tinubu to gain admission to Chicago State University, was issued to a person who was female. The gender of the applicant is printed there very clearly, F, female. And clearly, we also know that the person we know now as Nigeria's president-elect is clearly not a transgender. If this person to Chicago State University was female, then the person who was issued to Chicago State University was a female. And clearly, we also know that the person we know now as Nigeria's president-elect is clearly not a transgender. If this person to Chicago State University was female, then the person who was issued to Chicago State University was a female. that person called Bola Tinubu, and then this person called Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a man, then that would imply that they are not in fact the same person. And if he claims to be that person who was admitted to Chicago State University and who was awarded a degree from Chicago State University in 1979, that would then imply that identity theft took place. Now, the identity theft is an issue on its own, but what I'm more interested in here is the perjury which committed on the INEC AC9 declaration. Because bear in mind, that's what this is really about. It's not really about the fact that a criminal has done criminal things, but it's about the fact that a criminal is trying to be president. Right? That's what I think the issue here is. Now, on that INEC AC9 declaration as well, the university certificates which is submitted to INEC, purportedly from Chicago State University, we sent out a subpoena to Chicago State University, and then they sent a direct reprint of the actual certificate issued in 1979 to Bola Tinubu. And that certificate and the certificate which he submitted to INEC are two completely different documents. Completely different. The outline of the document is different. The dates of the documents are different. The format is different. The font is different. The university logo is different. The people who sign on the certificate are different. Signatures are different. The number of signatures is different. And then there are grammatical errors on the certificate which is submitted to INEC. And then worst of all, really cursory, really low-level internet research, you can't get investigation, just basically Google search. Using just a basic, if literally Google fake Chicago State University, I guarantee you on the first page of Google, you will see a result which links to a website called diplomamakers.com. That is diploma-makers.com. And if you follow that link and go to the entry for a fake Chicago State University certificate templates, that document and the document he submitted to INEC are the same thing. So it's the same layout, it's the same font, it's the same logo, it's the same everything, and even the same grammatical errors on that template. It's what turned up in the supported certificate that he submitted to INEC, which is a completely different document from that which we received from Chicago State University. It shows that this person not only committed forgery, but also submitted a forgery to INEC on his AC9 declaration, which is also perjury. And there were many other instances of perjury that were also covered in that story. If anyone hasn't read it, I would recommend reading it. Again, the headline of the story is "Has Atiku committed perjury?" The evidence says yes. So just Google and you'll see this. It's pretty self-explanatory.
All right. Thank you so much for that explanation. Now, how do you explain the fact that all these stories, and this did not start today, started when he was governor, and they've been continuously building on what we've been saying, that they've not seemed to have stopped him? What is going on? You didn't mention the issue of the age also, which is, we've seen so many conflicting. Go ahead.
Yes. So there was also that the certificates, not the certificate, the documents that were received from Chicago State University, the date of birth there, and then the date of birth on his INEC EC9 declaration, there's a 2-year discrepancy. So the INEC EC9, I think date of birth is 1952, and then on this one, 1954. What explains that? No explanation. And then on the Chicago's the from college into Chicago University claims that the person gaining admission apparently attended Government College Lagos and graduated in 1970. And it just so happens that Government College Lagos, which is located in Surulere, commenced operations in 1974. So someone couldn't have graduated in 1970 because the school didn't exist. Right? And this is easily verifiable. So, and in answer to your question, which is,
go ahead.
Sorry, should I go on?
Yeah, go ahead. There's a delay.
So I was saying, in answer to your question, which was, what do I think has happened? I think first of all, this has been a very huge failure of journalism. Obviously, it has been a failure of the electoral system, INEC, of the system, the judicial system. Yes, we know all those things. But I think first a major failure of journalism. And why I say it's a failure of journalism is that a lot of these things weren't even that difficult to get hold of. They weren't even that hard to find. Um, I gained some sort of personal interest in the backstory of Tinubu maybe a little over a year ago, and in just under a year, I've been able to get to this point. I don't believe that somebody who has had these kinds of scandals in his past, going back 30 plus years, I don't believe that there's any excuse for why the entirety of Nigerian media, for whatever reason, over all these decades, hasn't been able to pin him down. This man has been a two-term governor. This man has been a senator as well, which is always easy to forget. He was a senator in the Third Republic. He has been a frontline member of the ruling party for the past 8 years now. He's a political godfather, a very well connected operator. And somehow or the other, even though a lot of things have been hidden in plain sight, for whatever reason, be it that parts of the media are completely beholden to him because obviously he spends a lot of money on keeping editors and journalists on his side. But be that as it may, I know it's not everyone, even he can afford to pay off. So there's really no excuse or the explanation that account for why after all this time, it's only now in 2023 that we're getting to find out all of this information, a lot of which has been publicly available for decades. Now, maybe in this, because this information was only obtainable via a subpoena, so maybe there was a little bit of difficulty involved. But the thing is, just me at my little level, I mean, I run a little Substack publication, right? I'm collaborating with a lawyer who actually did a lot of heavy lifting, right? But even at that low level, I was able to get hold of this stuff. There are much larger newsrooms in Nigeria. There are newsrooms in Nigeria that have existed since before I was born. And these people have resources, they have money, they have access, and they have to get hold of all of this stuff. And nothing has been done. There's no fluff that isn't reported as news in Nigeria. There's no press release that isn't reported as news in Nigeria. But actual stories like this have to be falling through the cracks first year. So I think first and foremost, it's a huge failure of journalism, and it's an indictment, serious as there ever can be on this. And then obviously it's failure of the Nigerian system because sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to say that we're having breaks difficulty hearing you. There are breaks in your voice. I think maybe is the connection to the earpiece. Maybe can you take it out and see if it's better. Constantly we get breaks when you speak. Yeah, please. And see if that will
better.
Okay. Let's say something. Let me see.
Okay, let's.
Okay, that's better. Let's try it.
Something. Two. Oh, okay.
All right. Okay. So thank you so much. So now, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The final thing I was going to mention was that this failure of the Nigerian system itself, because I was having a conversation with a lawyer yesterday, and he made me understand that under the Electoral Amendment Act of 2022, well, it started 2022. It was actually the previous Electoral Amendment Act of 20 that this started being the case. But apparently, INEC does not have the power to vet candidates. So essentially, what that means, if you are submitting an EC9 declaration to INEC to run for president, if you take a pile of leaves from your backyard, you submit that to INEC with your EC9 declaration, and you claim that this pile of leaves is your university certificate, INEC does not have the power to reject it and say, no, this is not a certificate. Because for the fact that you are submitting it with a sworn affidavit, INEC has to take what you say. So, in my opinion, it makes absolutely no sense. You are pinky swearing, right? And INEC has no power to vet you whatsoever, none whatsoever. So I thought that is definitely an issue that needs to be looked at, because the Electoral Amendment Act obviously has to be amended once again. Because INEC definitely needs to have some sort of discretionary power. Now, it was also mentioned that INEC has abused the power before when it have this power. So obviously, there's some kind of solution needs to be found, because I understand taking away the power from INEC because it's abused it. On the other hand, you can't have a situation where an actual real life criminal has been able to submit false information, clearly and obviously, blatantly, brazenly false information to INEC. And INEC simply doesn't have the power to say anything. INEC can't do anything. The only, according to the Electoral Amendment Act of 2022, you and I, ordinary Nigerians, no longer have power to take Bola Tinubu or any of the presidential candidates to court, as you submitted a fake document or you are not qualified to be president and I'm taking you to court for that. We no longer have that power. We used to have that power under the previous electoral act. That's taken away from us. And now the only people who have that power are the people who competed against the candidates during primary elections, and then the candidates who competed with them during the actual election. So you and I essentially have had one of our most important powers as citizens basically taken away from us in a legislative coup, which was led by Femi Miller. So clearly there was a legislative failure or a legislative thing that took place that have made all of this possible as well. And then finally, the judicial system. I think this is also an indictment, a heavy indictment on the judicial system, because this is actually not the first time that Tinubu has been taken to court for perjury. I believe he was taken to court in 2001, or was it 2000, by the late Gani SAN. What was pled in court was that apparently, since Tinubu had been sworn in as governor at that time, apparently it was he had immunity. He could be sued. He couldn't get into court because he had legal immunity as governor. And then to sort of formalize that 419 that took place, there was now a Senate hearing, or is it House of Reps hearing, and then he was exonerated by a panel of politicians. I mean, these are not lawyers, not judges, it's not a jury, it's a panel of politicians who said one of their own, and then they were all rewarded handsomely for that. And then he has been able to go around for years since then, saying that, hey, if you want to bring this up against me, people have brought it up before, and look, I was exonerated. They found no wrongdoing, without mentioning that who exonerated you. Was it the court? Was it the judge? No, it was the criminals like you that exonerated you. You understand? So that's what I mean when I say judicial failure here as well, because I don't believe that in certain instances there should the immunity clause should apply. In certain instances, I believe, and this is the else even in places like the US, it is also the case that the immunity clause is not absolute. It's absolute. There are exceptions. There are not many, but there are exceptions to the immunity clause. Nigeria, as if the immunity clause is absolute and universal. So once I'm sworn in as a governor or as a president, I am legally and officially above all kinds of law enforcement, of all kinds of legality. I think that's definitely legislative and judicial failure that needs to be looked into as well.
Now, David, let's get back to the citizenship of Guinea. Do you have any idea why he should want to have that? Why did he obtain that? Do you have any idea? Any advantage would that be for him to have that citizenship?
So the best I can say is that if one is looking at it from the point of view of any kind of rational reasoning for having a Guinean diplomatic passport, for having Guinean citizenship, and the kind of freedom that a Guinean diplomatic passport offers, on the surface, you can't see any reason for that. If you look a little bit beneath the surface, you can start to add 2 and 2 here and there. So, for example, as a governor, to the best of my knowledge, governors in Nigeria are not supposed to have diplomatic passports, to the best of my knowledge. So I don't think he would otherwise have been entitled to a diplomatic passport. As you may know, diplomatic passports offer special movement privileges to the people who hold them. So if you hold a regular passport, you are generally going to be some more scrutiny, especially if it's an African passport. There's more scrutiny at airports, that kind of thing. A diplomatic passport gives you a little bit more freedom of movement and gives you a little bit more respect. You are searched less often, that sort of thing. So it's a nice to have. Now, very crucially, for someone who has been repeatedly, consistently, repeatedly over and over on multiple occasions linked with drug trafficking, very crucially, Guinea is now the cocaine capital of West Africa. Guinea is basically the first, more or less, narco state in West Africa. It used to be Guinea-Bissau next door, but the authorities in Guinea-Bissau started cracking down on cocaine and heroin trafficking in that country. And then the smugglers and traffickers started moving south to Guinea-Conakry. So if you recall, barely 3 weeks in was the 6th of April. This was reported all over. It was reported on Reuters, every AFP. A ship containing 1.5 million tons of cocaine was discovered in the port I forget the city, but it's a city in Guinea, right? It's a ship loaded in 1.5, sorry, not 1.5 million, sorry, 1.5 tons of cocaine, right? And obviously, this cocaine is the ultimate destination of this cocaine is Europe, because that's where the market for it is, right? So basically, it's been known for a long time. There's an SBM report. I'm actually kind of upset I didn't send this visual to you before the show. It's a very relevant visual to send. There's an SBM report which came out a couple of weeks ago, which shows how West Africa is now becoming an increasingly prominent global cocaine and heroin trafficking route. So basically, the route starts off in South America, Brazil to be precise, comes toward West Africa, and you have cities like Lagos, Conakry. Those are the layovers, and then from there, by ship or by air, it heads off to Europe, which is where the final market is. Now, why would someone who made his initial fortune, don't forget, made his initial fortune off heroin trafficking, of drug trafficking, and has consistently been linked with illicit activity like drug trafficking over the years, why would that person be so enthralled by the prospect of gaining citizenship of a basically a major state in West Africa, and then not just having citizenship of that state, holding a diplomatic passport of that state? What was he using that diplomatic passport to do? The movement privileges offered by that diplomatic passport in the context of a West African narco state, an individual who has been repeatedly linked to narco trafficking, what was the nexus? That's a question only he can answer. I don't want to answer the question, even if the answer might seem obvious. I want him to answer it. Like, he is the one who needs to answer that question.
All right, let's look at the other things about Bola Tinubu. This week there was last week there was a report that he was in Saudi Arabia. Even his people were tweeting that he went for Hajj. But Shore and other sources are reporting that he didn't go there. What do you know about where he is and what is going on with him?
Well, the only thing I know is that I know nothing at all, and I think that's the tragedy of the Buhari legacy, is that Buhari has made it okay to a president elect, and for that person to hypothetically or to exceptionally you actually don't know where on earth this person is, or if this person is actually even alive or dead. Buhari has made that okay, and I think that's the legacy we're seeing now, because Tinubu is basically clearly showing the same characteristics that he doesn't feel that. First of all, I guess he knows he didn't win the election anyway. So you can't buy legitimacy. You can buy INEC, but you can't buy legitimacy. I think he knows that. So I feel as if at this point he genuinely doesn't care what we think, or whether we think that there's an issue to be had with the fact that we have a supposed president elect, and we don't know where on the planet he is. So we've had people. I've had people contacting me, like basically open sourcing investigation to where the supposed president elect might be, and people tracking private jets linked to him, because it's possible to track jets using public accessible databases. So I've had people tracking movements. Okay, this is his private jet. It's a Gulfstream, whatever. This is a private jet owned by Oando, which he uses sometimes. This is a charter jet, which he might have transferred to. And still, I find myself interested in all of this because I feel as if why on earth should I be having to sleuth to know where the supposed president-elect of my country is on the path? Right? He is the one who's supposed to be places 24/7, making his presence known if he actually believes and feels that he won that election. So where on earth is he? I don't know. Some people say he's in France. Some people say he's in London. Some people claim he's in Saudi Arabia. But the people who claimed he was in Saudi Arabia put out a picture which was from 2020, from 2019, like fake news basically, and then deleted it. So what all of this tells me, going by Nigerian historical precedent, once you start seeing people, especially people who linked to government, bring out fake news to say that this person is fine or this person is in so and so place, you can be sure that the person is not fine and the person is not in so and so place. So we know for a fact that Tinubu is not in Saudi Arabia, and we know he's not in good health. Beyond that, we know absolutely.
All right. Let me ask you another question before we let our audience. I know you don't have time. We wish you have a lot of time to stay with us. Let me ask you about Peter Obi and the story that came out of his travel during the Easter period. What do you know about what happened at the UK airports with Peter Obi? David, are you there?
Hello?
Okay, go ahead.
Back.
Yeah. I thought you were the one that was frozen. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So,
okay.
So, from what, and I should bear in mind, it should be borne in mind that I haven't actually spoken to Peter directly about this. So basically, all is people around and first of all, it's being made out to be a much bigger deal than it actually was. He himself didn't necessarily want to put this story out there. It was put out against his will by somebody whom he confided in, and he was actually not very pleased about the fact that this story got out. He visited the UK, and the plan was to be in and out. You know that he travels, he moves in and out quickly. He doesn't announce himself. So the plan was to be in and out and go back to Nigeria. He wants to be seen that he's in Nigeria. He doesn't want to be seen as somebody who is, leaving the country for whatever reason, because some people have been trying to put pressure on him to leave the country. So he traveled to the UK and he was stopped at the point of entry. If you're familiar with how it works at Heathrow Airport, when you get to the front of the immigration queue, then the immigration officer asks why you're visiting the UK, takes your passport, scans it, whatever. And if everything is all right, they wave you through, welcome to the UK. And once you get taken to this little white room, they ask you a bunch of questions, and that's what happened to him. And it turned out that apparently there was someone, or they claimed that there was someone who was already in the UK using his identity. Interpretation that could mean is that the Nigeria Immigration Service had issued a valid Nigerian passport, had basically duplicated Peter Obi's passport, because only the Nigerian Immigration Service or its contractor, that's Iris, the company that actually prints it, only those two entities have that, right? So it's not as if it's a new passport that has been created with a new set of details and the name happens to be the same as Peter Obi. It's a biometric details and the same serial number, same everything was issued. That person apparently was in the UK. So that raises all sorts of questions, because first of all, to get into the UK, you need a British visa. So that would mean that at the British High Commission in Lagos or in Abuja, there's some sort of racket going on there as well that needs to be unraveled. Because how is it that somebody who claims to be Peter Obi, the Labour Party candidate who ran in the election, someone claiming to that person comes and it's not that person, and it comes with this person, like an original passport, and a visa is stamped into that passport. How did that happen? So there are several parts of the story which are not clear. And I think the British government itself has several questions to answer. But suffice to say, after a few hours of detention, if you call it that, basically being questioned, and then it was established beyond all reason is actually a person called Peter Obi, and whoever it is that has been running around using his identity is a different person altogether. Then he was allowed to go. He was on his way. And in fact, by the time he told this person the story, the person who eventually put the story out, he was already back in Nigeria by that time. So again, it wasn't as dramatic an event as it was made out to be. However, it is a worrying thing because don't forget that this phenomenon of Nigerian passports being duplicated and then people getting to foreign countries and realizing that their identity has been used to out nonsense in that country. This has happened to other people. I'm not going to mention names here, but this has happened to other people, specifically people who have some kind of problem with it, with whichever government is in power, right? Because basically, the Nigerian government has the power to pull stunts like that. So basically, as long as you're using a Nigerian passport, the Nigerian government has the ability to mess you up wherever you're going if you are traveling with a Nigerian passport. The only reason that hasn't happened to me is because I do not use a Nigerian passport any longer. I have no doubts that if I was traveling with a Nigerian passport, something similar would have happened to me by now. It has happened to someone I know very well, actually. It has happened to him, to someone quite close to me, who is also perceived to be an enemy of states. Something very similar was done. He wasn't in the UK this time. I don't want to mention the country because it might give the person away. But he got to the point of entry at that country, and they said, "Well, according to our records, you are already in the country." And then it caused a lot of issues, and he had to make a lot of calls. And thankfully, he was friendly with a lot of influential people in that country. Otherwise, he might have been arrested and deported or jailed. So these things happen. So the fact that this was done to the extent of targeting someone as highly placed as Peter Obi, I even from the point of view of an antagonistic government, I think that was a really stupid thing to do. I think there are certain things you can get away with doing it to David Hundeyin. I don't think you get away with doing it to the person who ran for president and who was the most popular candidate in the election. I don't think that was a smart move. But I guess this Nigerian government is not exactly known for being populated with smart people. So there you go.
All right. We're running out of time now before I get the audience to get involved. But let me ask you, what other I've had some pushback on stories that you published. Can you tell the audience what you've experienced because of the work you do?
So I guess the most regular pushback I get is the usual criticism. Basically, we don't like you. Essentially, that's what it boils down to. We don't like you. I don't like the way you write. I don't like the way you involve yourself in your storytelling. I don't like your method and mode of storytelling. It's not what I'm used to. I don't think you're a real journalist. I think you need an editor. Blah 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 blah. You do fake news, or you forged the document. I'm always being accused of forging receipts and documents, and it's the most ridiculous thing in the world because what I always try to do when putting together a story is that I don't report stories. I don't put a story using reported speech. Like I don't put out stories using reported speech. Like I was informed that, or I heard that, or so and so person said. No, I will show it in the story. I will embed everything in the story. So instead of saying West Africa Weekly saw a document stating that blah 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 blah, I will just paste the document right there in the body of the article. That is the document. So it's not West Africa Weekly or David Hundeyin that said it. That is the document, right? So I guess where it's very difficult to argue against the weight of evidence that I put out. So the only line of defense that is left, the usual suspects use, is to accuse me of faking up stuff. But very curiously, I've been in this space since 2019. I mean, as a frontline investigative journalist since 2019. This is my 4th year. And in that entire time, not a single person has ever successfully taken me to court to say that this wasn't true, or this was defamation, or this was fake. It hasn't happened once. But every single time I put out a story, it's the same tired response every time. A few people will threaten to sue. Some people actually send cease and desist legal notices. I know in February last year, when I did a story on Amnesty International Nigeria and its then country director, Osai Ojigo, she sent me a legal notice, cease and desist notice, and if you don't take the story down within 7 days and issue an apology in 3 national dailies, whatever, I'll sue. I'll demand for damages of ridiculous amounts. And I said, yes, please go ahead and sue. And she never did. And then in January this year, she was eventually fired from Amnesty International because basically everything I wrote in the story was true. This happens all the time. So I put out a story. Then there's the defense brigade. I immediately scrambled from their WhatsApp group to come and hurl insults at me, make mockery of my son name, call me David Hyundai, call me fake journalist, blah blah blah, call me all sorts of horrible names, invoke my divorce because apparently that's fair game on social media. So talk about how he couldn't keep his marriage or whatever. Make mention of my dead father as well because you know that's always going to get a reaction out of me. Make mention of my mom, whom they know I don't have a good relationship with, blah 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 blah. Just make it personal and try and turn it into a mud flinging contest so that everyone will forget what is actually the substance of the issue, which is the story that I've put out, and then it turns into an inquisition of David Hundeyin. That's always what happens. So people are always constantly trying to shift attention away from the story and onto the writer, make it about me. So, very interestingly, when I did this story last year as well, this story about perjury, it was the exact same thing. Oh, he forged the documents. Oh, some people said the document that came back from Deloitte, because Deloitte was subpoenaed to ask that, did this person ever work with you, and do you have any records for this person? And Deloitte replied saying, no, we have no records for this person. We don't know him. And for days, people were going around on Twitter and on Facebook and wherever saying that I forged a letter from Deloitte, and that the lady who signed the letter responding to the subpoena doesn't exist, right? Somebody who you can find on LinkedIn. I mean, I can mention her name because it's on public record. Her name is Letitia Negoni. It's on LinkedIn, right? And because apparently she signed the letter using a shortened and abbreviated version of her first name. So instead of signing it as Letitia Negoni, she signed it as Tish Negoni. So apparently that made the whole thing fake. I forged it. Oh, he never got into contact with any lawyer in Chicago. It's a lie. He never sent out any subpoenas. Apparently I'm such a wonderful graphic artist that I sit down with my laptop and I create documents and receipts all day. That's all I do. And then I weave fantastic fictional storylines around these documents that I created out of thin air. And then I push them out and I defame people. And I commit libel. And somehow no one has ever been able to successfully take me to court for 4 years. Even though my corporate address is in the public domain, I've put it out several times. If you have a problem with the story, please go ahead and sue. My corporate address is in Wyoming. It's on public record. Please go ahead and sue me. If you submit a lawsuit, I have to appoint a lawyer to represent me in court in Wyoming or wherever, right? But because it's obviously, you don't want to sue me in America because you know that there's a legal system there that works. So you can't do the usual nonsense you do in Nigeria. You don't sue.
Now, let's talk about this story. It was a major story, conflicts for jihad. When it came out, what was the reaction?
It was twofold. The first and more common reaction was just utter shock and disbelief. Because I think most people really had no idea of how deeply embedded this virus is within the Nigerian state, or how highly placed are the people who incubated this monster are in Nigerian society. So I think for the first time, seeing names, especially the fact that names were named, names were mentioned, organizations were mentioned, you could see recognizable faces, pictures, names, place, organizations, institutions. Like, it wasn't just the usual vague thing where you see, oh, UAE government sends list of 18 Nigerians suspected of terror financing to Nigerian government, and then you will never see who the 18 people are. You will never see their names or their pictures. It's just a hypothetical thing. For the first time, I believe it was the first time most Nigerians had ever seen that kind of thing with relation to terrorism, that names were named. and not just obscure names that like of low level operators who can be sacrificed, but the people at or close to the very top, people who have access to the president, including the president himself. So there was a lot of disbelief and shock. And then on the other hand, there was a lot of rage at me. That how dare I do this? Because there were some people who saw it as an attack on their political formation, or an attack on their religion, or an attack on the religious organization that they identify with, the Zala movement or Jibwis. So there was a lot of that too. The so I'm used to a lot of the nastiness that happens whenever I put out a story, but I have to say that in terms of the sheer ferocity of the reaction that came afterwards, I think that's definitely in my top two most difficult reactions to deal with afterwards, because they went to a lot. They went to a very very far extent. They they wrote letters. Some people wrote letters to everyone I'm associated with, including Substack. They created social media handles and pages dedicated strictly to attacking and defaming me. So there was, I remember on Facebook, I'm not even that active on Facebook, but they created a page on Facebook. I think it was called The Conscience or something. And all that Facebook page did, day after day, week after week, was just write post after post after post, just making every kind of accusation under the sun about David Hundeyin. David Hundeyin hates Muslims, he hates this, he hates Hausa people, he hates Northerners, blah, blah, blah. And then these posts will be sponsored. So people actually had a budget to sponsor these posts on Facebook. So they were spending actual US dollars to sponsor these messages all over Facebook and Twitter. David Hundeyin hates Hausas, he hates Muslims, he hates Northerners, and that everything he writes comes out of this immense hatred he has for this tribe and this religion. He's a terrible person, and he hates Hausa people so much that he just sits down and creates fictional tales about how Hausa people are involved in terrorism. Like, they created all sorts of, and unfortunately, being that Nigeria is not exactly, I mean, I don't want to insult Nigeria, but Nigeria is, let's just say, the information ecosystem in Nigeria is still quite small. People are not used to the internet yet in Nigeria. The internet is still a relatively new experience for many Nigerians. So many Nigerians haven't yet understood that because you see something on the internet doesn't mean you have to take it serious. So once they see these messages flying around, then it becomes, oh, well, it must be true. I've seen it 10 times, so it must be true. So there are lots of people out there to date who absolutely hate my guts for no other reason than they saw a message on Facebook or Twitter saying that I'm someone that they should hate. Even they don't know why, but it's just something they saw, so they just do it. That's how it was.
All right. One last question. So, knowing all the things you know, what do you expect is going to happen now? I mean, all these revelations, and there's this story I wanted to share now that Premium Times published, I think today or yesterday, saying that it's confirmed that Peter Obi actually won in Rivers State. Yeah. What do you expect will happen between now and the May 29th, the swearing-in period? And do you think that Bola Tinubu will be sworn in as president? And what will the courts do, in your own estimation?
That's a very difficult question to answer, because I think there are a lot of moving parts in this story. The judiciary doing X or doing Y is only part of the story. Sorry. Being able to occupy, or being able to be sworn in and to occupy the seat of GCFR in Nigeria is actually quite a complicated thing. First of all, INEC has to declare you the winner. In addition to INEC declaring you the winner and you clearing the judicial hurdles, the post-election tribunal and the Supreme Court and all of that, you also have to have legitimacy, widespread political legitimacy just amongst the people. And then you need to have respect from the international community. You need to be credible in their eyes. And then, in my opinion, most importantly, the armed forces of Nigeria need to respect you. You need to have credibility with the armed forces. I see Tinubu as someone who has none of these things. only thing he has is the INEC declared him winner. That's it. He has no political legitimacy because even if you are to go with the official figures the INEC released, which even according to Premium Times now, those figures are clearly being shown to be completely nonsensical and fraudulent. But even if we're going to go with those official figures, we're going to say that someone with supposedly 8 million votes, he got nothing close to 8 million votes, let's be clear. But let's say someone who got, suppose was allocated 8 million votes in an election where there were 89 million registered voters. Someone who scored 8 million votes, less than 10% of the total possible votes. How could that person have political legitimacy? How? He just didn't have it. He doesn't have it. That's even going with the figures that INEC released. If we're using the actual figures, he lost that election scandalously. And everybody knows it. It's not losing an election versus winning an election in Africa is not something you can hide. It's not something that is left for supposition. If you won an election, like in 2015, Buhari won the election, that wasn't up for debate. We knew. Whether INEC announced it or not, it was clear who won the election and who didn't. That's generally how it turns out to be. This election, we know who won it and who categorically did not. So INEC went and announced whatever it announced, but everybody knows. So he lacks that political credibility, first of all. In the international community, it's increasingly becoming common knowledge now that this person is a known drug trafficker. Like, for whatever reason, this thing was able to sort of keep it under the radar for the past 30 years or so, because he himself on the radar. He was a senator in Lagos and he was a governor of Lagos. Yes, Lagos is the largest subnational economy in Africa, but it's only a city, right? That's a completely different ball game to becoming the president of Africa's largest country and Africa's biggest economy. Now that he's trying to step up to that level, there's a certain level of scrutiny which he has never experienced before, which is starting to happen. In the coming few days and weeks, you will start seeing more and more international stories coming up. So the coverage from like Uber Facts and Daily Loud that people were shouting about last week, there's going to be a lot more like that. It's going to be a lot worse. And it's going to be from platforms that have a lot more mainstream credibility and relevance than handles like Uber Facts. You're going to start seeing things in New York, in Belling Cards, Political, The Hill, the Times of London, Daily Telegraph. You'll start seeing these things. It will happen. Categorically, it will happen. So internationally, he already lacks a certain amount of credibility. Bear in mind that the US President Joe Biden, very much unlike US tradition, he gets to officially recognize him. The US congratulated him, but the US President is not very strong. And then, in my opinion, most importantly, the armed Nigeria, about the level, maybe the people who have been generals for 11 years, or the chiefs of staff, or whatever, maybe those guys are happy with the status quo. But the majors, the captains, the colonels and lieutenant colonels, the mid-level officer corps in the Nigerian military are not going to be thrilled that their GCFR that they are apparently supposed to respect and take orders from is a common criminal. There's going to be a problem. Right? There's definitely going to be a problem. If he is sworn in, that's a very big if. If he is sworn in, there are going to be issues. There is a very real possibility, and this is not hyperbole, this is not an exaggeration. There's a very real possibility of a military coup if this guy is mistakenly sworn in. I know it sounds like, oh, David is being dramatic, but I'm telling the truth. There's a very real possibility that this will happen. So, in my opinion, the stupidest thing he could have ever done was run for president. I don't know why he did it, but now I think it's up to the Nigerian judiciary to save all of us from what could potentially be in the offing, because I can't decide which option is worse. Becoming recognized as a narco state led by a common criminal, or ending up in 1994 all over again, led by a military dictator. We don't want either of those two things. So we hope and pray that the judiciary does something for us.
All right. Thank you, David. I have brought in some of our viewers to join us. We give them only a chance to ask a question, no commentary. We don't have time. David has to leave in another 24 minutes. So, Sho, you're first.
Okay. Thank you, Rudolph, and good evening, David. Nice to meet you. I've got a question and I've got a request. The question is, I haven't said, I haven't followed your work closely. You've mentioned that you're, from what you consider upper middle class family in Nigeria. Now, having gone through the things you've gone through, the sacrifice you've had to made or have to make, do you sometimes look back? Because I watched your interview with a Kenyan guy about a few weeks ago, and you talked about how you did your first investigative journalism work and all of that, how you got into journalism, your parents' disapproval and all of that. Do you sometimes look back and think, especially with the attacks you get from people who don't agree with your work, do you sometimes look back and wish you did something different? That's my question. And the second request, and the request is, please, for some reason you've blocked me on Twitter. We've never engaged on Twitter. I'm now getting your work secondhand information. I don't like that. Please, please. I only found out recently that you blocked me for whatever reason. I would send my Twitter account on the chat or give it to Rudolph to pass to you. Please, I beg, unblock me. I don't like secondhand information. I'm a keen follower. Thank you.
All right. David wants to get 3 questions.
Right, so,
and you want to answer this one first?
We do.
Okay.
Let me. Okay.
Go ahead. David.
Yeah, just really quickly. So yeah, with regard to the second thing, I used to be notorious for using this extension called Mega Block, and what it does is that it blocks a whole chain of people. So basically, if there's like a tweet that I know is Tinubu people that are on this tweet, anybody who likes that tweet gets automatically blocked. So it's possible you got caught up in something like that. I'm notorious for using those extensions. So when people see themselves blocked, it's not necessarily because I blocked you. I use third-party extensions that block people automatically because I don't like engaging certain. And then the first question, let me just quickly answer that. No, partly because there's really nothing to look back on. Man, I made my decision. I'm not looking for sympathy or anything. Like I thought I was getting, and also because from the moment I watched my dad die in 2017, I mean, my dad was a very well-to-do person, and what did he die of? It wasn't something that should have killed a human being. It was just that an ambulance didn't show up. And it was just so petty. It was so minor. It was so little. And this person who was, at that time, it was a billionaire. He just died like a cockroach. So what that told me was that there really isn't anything worth hanging on to in the Nigerian system. Like if you think you are the elite in Nigeria, there is no elite in Nigeria. We're all poor, useless people. That's the truth. Well, whether you live in Ikoyi or you live in Lekki, you are not different from the person living in Jakande Market. You are not. It's just that you have more money than that person. But we all actually exist at the same level. I witnessed this in 2017 because we lived in Ogudu GRA. We lived in an 8-bedroom palace, if you like. And just the fact that the ambulance just refused to show up, that's it. So he had a stroke. He should have survived. But the ambulance just didn't show up. And we had no way of getting into the hospital. And I basically just watched life leave his body and he just died. He was perfectly fine the previous night. There was nothing wrong with him. He had a stroke. He just ran. And that was it. Other than this man was there, he was, and then when we were putting him into the morgue at the hospital, because we didn't have a death certificate, I didn't even know there was such a thing at the time. They were not like, oh, they can't take the body because there's no death certificate. So I had to pay a bribe so that they could forge a death certificate so that my dad's body could be put in the morgue. And all this while I was thinking, so these things I read about on Twitter and I see in Punch newspapers, so these things can happen to me too. Right, so basically, what I just told me is that there is really nothing worth salvaging in Nigeria. There's no elite. There's no upper middle class in Nigeria. We're all poor. So if I don't see any value in that system, then to hell with it.
All right. Thank you. So, sure. Thank you so much, Mama Icho. Yeah. All right, Mama Icho, you're next. Just a question,
David, it was nice meeting you at last. I've been watching your work behind the scene. I'm proud of what you do, and I thank you for the courage to stand for the truth and to join host of Nigeria to fight this war of impunity that has made our country, ourselves, to become global disgrace. And together, we shall redeem this country from this terrorist group called Set of Politicians. So I will be needing your phone number. There are work we are going to be doing together. I am the convener of Anda Mongo Charitable Organization here, charitable organization in Nigeria, and charity organization here in US. We have many things to do together. So my question is this: what is the implication if Tutu, as I call him, Tinubu, what is going to be the implication in general if he happen to be sworn in 20, in May 2019? If the judiciary does not take swift decision now, what will be the implication at home and globally?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mama Echo. Alaro, you're next.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dr. Damages. David, you're doing a great job.
Okay, so
Can you hear me?
okay.
David, do you want to take that question first? I thought
You
anyone
want
you.
to take that?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead. What happened?
I should go ahead or
someone else was asking a question because I was asking. Yes, please.
okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, great job, and you have my support as usual. You didn't block me on Twitter, but you still haven't followed me back, so I'll appreciate that if you can. Like you said, the stories the facts, not stories that you put together on the former governor, have been out there. Because I have heard this through my older brothers and family members that are his age mates that were all in this old Chicago, people that grew up in Chicago in his time. You hear little things. So it was always out there. And that being said, I don't know if you looked into the angle of those old timer Lagosian mob bosses in Chicago. Those that actually got those life sentences back then. Have you looked in that angle and see if you can maybe contact them? They might have some interesting stories to tell if they're still in the system. More grace to you, and my prayers are with you. I know it's not easy going against the government. Like you said, they have their ways. Stay blessed, and I appreciate the opportunity. One love, man. Peace.
All right. So, David, do you want to take the two, or should I continue? Okay. Ikola, you're next.
We said okay. So let me take it through then. First question was, what are the local implications of? Should I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead, David. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead,
Hello?
David. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
We can hear
So
you.
the first question was, what are the local international implications of the swearing in if it's to go ahead? Now, the local implication of this is twofold. First of all, Tinubu's people are transactional people. They're mercantile people, so they see it as their turnkeys. Basically, that's all it's about for them. So, if there's such a thing as a President Tinubu, the model that it has been employed in Lagos, that parasitic model, is going to be imported wholesale to Abuja. So what they're going to try and do, if they find their way there, is to take over all the instruments of states and fix themselves at the nozzle of anything that looks like there's money there. That's their number one target. So all of these for Dio Israel's, all of these, as we call them on social media, the only reason they're acting so obnoxious is to signal to Oga that how low I'm willing to roll in the mud because of you. How loyal you. So if I'm this loyal, I deserve to be rewarded in an outsized manner. So this one wants to be minister of this or that. This one wants to be DG of this or that. That's what it's about for them locally. Everybody is trying to position. There is a lot of lobbying going on as we speak. A lot of it. They've not sworn the man in yet. We don't even know whether a swearing in is going to happen yet. But there is a lot of lobbying going on already. Who is going to be where everybody is trying to fix their mouth on different every nozzle there is that looks like it's near an income generating entity. So that's the local implication. There's going to be a significant the economy is not great as it is, but there's going to be a significant economic downturn, just like there was in 2016, because something similar happened as soon as Buhari's people, and the first priority, the first order of business was to import every Adamu, Abdullahi, Suleiman into Abuja and displace everybody else. So we witnessed that in 2016. We had a recession in 2016 completely contrived. There was no reason for the 2016 recession to happen. It was completely contrived. The government was extremely concerned then with ethnicity and a certain religion, in charge of everything. So it's going to be a similar situation, possibly worse locally. Now, internationally, which is what I'm more concerned about, the international implications of swearing this person in as a president will be that all of these countries that are refusing to acknowledge right now that there's anything wrong, all of those media platforms that are refusing to cover right now, platforms, everyone that is looking the other way now, like everything is fine. As soon as he is sworn in, all of a sudden, you will realize that everything is not fine. All of a sudden, you start seeing all these journalists who let me let you into something. The initial story, which was the story about his involvement in drug trafficking, it was published in July last year. Ever since I published that story, I can't think of any major journalist around in the English-speaking world, whether it's Canada, US, UK, Australia, who writes on anything Africa or drug-related that hasn't followed me on Twitter. They've all read the story, but they've not said a word about it. They are just waiting. Let these people swear in this man first. Now, and the reason they are waiting now, they're concerned, it's not a story yet. It's not a story yet. He's just a presidential candidate or not yet the president. When he becomes the president, then it becomes a story for them. That the president of Africa's largest country, Africa's biggest economy, was a drug trafficker and has involvement in all forms of criminality. That's when you start seeing them pushing that narrative. And unfortunately, it's not even as very affected. We don't have diplomatic passports. Because we are ordinary people. We are the ones that when we are going to London or to Doha or to Dubai or to wherever, we are the ones that they will start wearing gloves and digging their hands into our anal crevice, searching for what is not there. We are the ones who are going to suffer all those indignities. So that's going to be the international. Already, Nigeria already does not have a good reputation, and already they don't even need an excuse to treat us terribly. I've been a victim of this. Last time I was in Dubai, I got seriously embarrassed. And the only thing that helped me out of the mess was because they realized that I was a journalist and I was a well-known journalist. That's the only thing that stopped it. I was embarrassed very bad. I was in Dubai in 2020. It wasn't funny at all. I just come off the flight. There were maybe like 3 black people on the flight because we weren't flying from Nigeria. We were flying from Turkey. And we landed in Dubai, and the 3 black people on the flight who happened to be Nigerians were randomly selected for drug searches. And because I didn't come with a suitcase, I only came with like a shoulder bag because I was only there for like 2 nights or something. They said, why don't you have a suitcase? So the implication was that I must have to do something. That's why I didn't come with load. I came here to take crime. They took me inside their white room, made me strip off my clothes, started asking me because it was a very nasty experience until I explained that this is who I am. I've written for CNN and then, oh my God, and then they backed off. Because they realized he can, shout it to a loud global audience. But ordinary people who don't have that privilege, what happens to them? It's going to worsen by a factor of 5. So those are the implications of Tinubu being sworn in now. And then the second question, which was asked from the the old school, I think Lagos. One understand those people first. Sorry,
David,
I can
yeah,
everyone hear me?
yeah, your line is getting worse. I'm not sure why. Are you on computer or a phone? Maybe you can get closer to the
Right. Okay,
computer.
you're back. The
Okay.
screen froze.
Oh, okay.
I'm on a computer.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I'm on a computer and I'm right next to my Wi-Fi router. What is happening? But
Okay.
it's to be fine now. So I was saying, the thing to understand about the more as that gentleman described is that first of all, getting access to people is not the easiest thing in the world. Um,
All right. Finally, his line is off. We'll wait for him.
right, I'm back again.
Okay. Okay.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, not the easiest people to gain access to. These are people who are very secretive. They've done a lot of terrible things and they know. So in their older years, they are not really trying to open up to anyone. And don't also forget that a lot of them have built fortunes off of criminality. So they're not trying to expose their descendants to any potential liability. So you can't just walk into a meeting with one of these people and ask them for their memoirs. They're not going to give it to you. And then especially being that they obviously they know who I am and they know that this one is this one is a big mouse. So nobody really wants to talk to me like that. It's very difficult to gain access to these people. I know they exist. I know some of them. They definitely know who I am, but gaining them is almost impossible. It's almost impossible. They have very strong. I think the Italians have a term for it. It's omerta, like an oath of silence. They have very, very strong aversion to speaking up about anything. They don't keep records. They don't write memoirs. Everything is strictly based on trust and family relationships and whatnot. So once you are perceived as an outsider, which I am, nobody's going to talk to you. So no, I've not been able to get access to that kind of information. I wish I could. It would be lovely if I could. I know there's so much going on under the hood that I can't even dream of. But unfortunately, no one is going to tell me.
All right. Thank you. Let's go to Ikolola. You're next.
Hey, good evening, everyone. And I don't know what time it is in New York right now. Good morning, Dr. Rudolph. And thank you, everyone, for giving me this chance. Thank you once again. Thanks for coming in, David. I've said hello to you many times on your spaces in Twitter. And, I've written to you sometimes in Twitter. But it's just for me to say thank you to what you're doing again. But since I have the opportunity to ask you a question, I might as well do that. Right. You have practically, I don't know, but this is what I assume. You have practically lost your hap- chances. Say, if this man gets sworn in, you have practically lost your chances of going back to Nigeria, if as it is. And you're still doing this. You're doing this.
Yeah.
You seem passionate about it. You put your best to it, and which gives persons like me say, okay, if that man is willing to put his life on the line, what are we afraid of? What exactly are we afraid of? But this is it. I mean, people say, and I've said it, it's becoming a song to me now. People say they voted in Buhari because they didn't know who he is. So you are trying to clear the air so that that excuse is no longer there. Now, what do you say? And these people they claim they are neutral. What do you say? And they were on this platform sometime yesterday. To persons who will come and say, well, we know all this, but let us just go on. You might be surprised, that is mostly their words. You might be surprised, he might get sworn in, and he becomes the best of what we have. And you wonder, and you cannot say they're not educated, you cannot say they're not informed, They know everything you're talking about, but they still wish for a miracle or something that cannot happen. How does that make you feel?
All right. Thank you. David, you want to take that or should I get two more people?
You should say that because they're like two questions in one. Question
Okay.
was, how do I feel about potentially having lost the possibility of ever returning home? Well, when I fled Nigeria for like apparently in November 2020, I guess I already knew to an extent that this could be permanent. Maybe I didn't necessarily appreciate the extent to which it will become permanent, but I definitely understood the possibility. So I wasn't like a naive child when I was coming into this, which is why I keep on saying I'm not asking for sympathy or anything. I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew what the implications were. I mean, I'm part of something called the Safe Box Network, which is run by Forbidden Stories. Forbidden Stories is a French organization, and what the Safe Box Network is an institution for journalists that basically you save all of your work on their secret server, and if anything happens to you, all of your work gets serialized across like 60 publications across like 5 continents or something. So basically, the purpose of that is that's like your insurance policy. Now, if you die, the person who killed you will be exposed to the world, right? And I'm part of that. So that's just to say that I'm aware of the risks involved, and I'm aware of the reality that, especially in that part of the world, journalists die. It's a thing. Just last month, one of our colleagues, uh, Richard Zongo, I believe you know the story in Cameroon. He was investigating a story about state corruption, and he turned up dead. It's a thing that happens. So I'm aware of the risks involved. But the thing is that maybe it's because I didn't really grow up seeing these people as like those people up there. I grew up with them. Like I went to school with their kids. Like I consider myself to be a contemporary. You understand? So like Fashola's kid and I went to Atlantic Hall together. So I don't see these people as those people up there. I see them as the people I saw every day. So I really don't rate them like that. I don't see them as people that I should be afraid of. I see them as a bunch of half literate, wastes of space who are making life a lot more difficult than it needs to be for everyone else. That's how I see it, right? Because that's what I grew up seeing. Right? Like these are not like I don't consider these to be like the elites or people that I should be worried about or beholden to. No, I just see them as the people who need to get out of the way. Nigeria has a phenomenal amount of high quality human beings, phenomenal amount of high quality talent. Right, that's the one thing Nigeria does not lack in any way. Very, very, very high quantities of very high quality people. Nigeria has that. The problem is that the people who happen to be in charge of Nigeria are these people that I grew up with, or that I grew up with their kids or their grandkids. So I just see it as these people need to leave the seat, right? And occasionally, like it does happen when like I run into like people I went to school with or whatnot. In some circles, I'm viewed as a pariah, right? There are some alumni groups that want nothing to do with me because this one is a before you go and use us to write an article, please, or that's how I'm viewed in some spaces. In some other spaces, I'm viewed more favorably. I'm just comes with the territory. I just feel as if, again, it goes back to watching my dad die in 2017. That thing did something to me. It rewired my brain in a way because it made me understand that at the end of everything, no matter how much you bargain with the system, because my dad spent his whole life bargaining with the system, so he wouldn't compromise, but at the same time, he wasn't like at all. He would never confront the system. My dad was the exact opposite of me. Very pacifist, very non-confrontational. My dad would never go and fight with anybody. And at the end of everything, he was the most agreeable person you can think of. And they just ordinary, okay, make the ambulance service work. That's it. My dad never expected anything from Nigeria. Never expected light, water, nothing. We did everything for ourselves. And at the end of it all, the one thing that we couldn't privatize, which was an ambulance to get him from the hospital, the one thing, that's what killed him.
All right.
Of not,
Thank you.
to coward. That's that's what I believe. Now, sorry, to spend 5 seconds reminding me what the second question was, so I can quickly answer.
Okay, it's the second question. Yeah. Thanks for answering the first one properly. The second one is, how do you feel? And I don't mean anger. How do you feel when you see persons who you are trying to educate and who are literate?
Right.
Read what you write,
I remember
and they
that.
feel okay. Let's just go on. I mean, let it just go on, and they're still affected. In fact, they are worse off than you. So you wonder.
So,
I should put that to you. Leave that to you. How do you feel?
one thing I've come to understand is that being educated, being literate, and being politically literate are not necessarily the same thing. Even within my own family, so I have a brother. He's a doctor, he's a medical doctor, very, very, very well educated person. And in 2015, he supported Buhari. And it used to cause tension between us because I could never understand it. Why on earth would you root for this person? Because one of the stories we were told when we were small was the story of how my brother, because he's 7 years older than I am, back in 1984, when he had just been born, when Buhari had just come into office, he was born in 1980. So apparently back then, when the whole Esenko thing was going on and people couldn't find commodities, so high-ranking civil servants, my dad, used to exchange information with via their, because having a Nitel telephone was like a very rare, it was an elite thing at the time. So people who had Nitel telephones were able to exchange information that you can get baby formula in Abeokuta, and it's not in Lagos. So one of my earliest memories is my mom telling me the story of how one time they put all the kids into the car and they drove to Abeokuta and they acted as if they were going for a family outing, but they were actually going to buy baby formula, to stock up on baby formula, because there was no baby formula in the market in Lagos. And that if not for that, my brother's growth would have been stunted because of Buhari. So I could never understand it in 2015 that because of this man that you're supporting, you almost didn't get to development. Why on earth are you rooting for this person with all your education? I couldn't understand it. And what I've come to understand since then is that being educated in a functional sense and being educated in a more like philosophical sense are not the same thing at all. So it's possible you can read English, you can be a reasonably logical person, you have a good job or whatever, you exist at a decent level of society, but internally, the way you think isn't all that different to the way the person that is driving a keke in Obalende thinks. Unfortunately, that's what I've discovered. That's how a lot of people are. So it is what it is.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Ngozi. Ngozi, you're next.
Thank you, Doctor. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, David. I want to ask two questions in one. So, hello, am I audible?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, you are.
So, I wanted to know, David, during the Itunu Babalola's case, I remember everything you put in it and how you went head to head with Abike Dabiri. And at the end of the day, you just sort of you told us on Twitter, by the way, I follow you on Twitter, that nobody should get you involved. If anybody has a problem in the diaspora, they should not mention your name, because it could potentially mean that that problem was not going to be solved because you irritate people for a living. So I just wanted to ask, if at a point you do this, you keep doing this, you keep trying to expose these secrets that these politicians keep, and people do not hear and they keep making the same mistakes over again, just like Babalola's case, will you stop? Especially, and I also wanted to ask you, when you joined the Forbidden Stories Network, I remember you announced it on Twitter, and I couldn't help but notice the timeline. It was shortly after you published the from drug lord to presidential candidate. Is there a connection? they did have something to do with you joining the network? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, so let me start with the second question. The answer is yes, it absolutely did. In fact, it was shortly after I published that story, they reached out to me. Funny story. They reached out to me first. So normally you are supposed to be the one who reaches out to them, but they actually reached out to me because they received an independent threat assessment. There's a whole story involved in this. So if you've heard of a Ghanaian journalist called Anas Aremeyaw Anas, Ghanaian investigative journalist. So he runs an organization called the Whistleblowers and Journalists Safety, uh, Whistleblowers and Journalists Safety International Council. Yeah, so it's shortened as WAJSIC. So at the time, I was getting some assistance from WAJSIC. Basically, they were I don't want to go into the specifics of it because I'm not really supposed to talk about it because a lot of this is obviously. But I was getting some assistance from WatchSick, and one of the things that WatchSick then did was they actually recommended, like they did an independent threat assessment that is this guy's life under threat, and the answer was yes, absolutely yes, it is. So there were a couple of things that they did for me, which I'm forever indebted to Anas for that, and then they also reached out to Forbidden Stories on my behalf. So it was Forbidden Stories that then reached out to me and basically like, so the process is that they onboard you, you save your work on their server via a secure drop, which can only be accessed using Tor browser. Um, they completely debrief you. They interview you comprehensively. They find out who the potential threats to your life are, where those threats are located, and all whatnot. And then they intentionally make you do a very visible announcement all over your social media so that everybody will know. Now, if anything happens to you, this everything is going to come out. So, and that serves as your insurance policy. So yes, you are right in thinking that there was a link. There was a very, very direct link, in fact. And then the first question, which was, eventually, will I stop? Well, the thing is, this career in itself is not a career you do 10, 15, 20 years. I've always seen it as a 4 to 5 year career, and then you hang your hat and leave someone younger because it's very, very high risk. It's very high octane. I've been in some very, like, you know how it is in the movies where you are watching an action sequence and as a spectator you're enjoying it, but even then you're thinking, well, this is so unlikely. This could never happen. But I've been in some situations that it was as if I was watching myself from like an out of body experience. That is this really me that is doing this? I've been in some really crazy situations over the past couple of years. So I mean, I turn 33 next month. I'm getting older, and you know, when I started out in 2019, I was newly divorced. I didn't have a child. You know, there were so many reasons why I could just throw myself into my work. Now things are a little bit different. So I see it as something you do 4 or 5 years, and then you transition into a quieter thing. Let a younger person take over. So this is my fourth year. So this is like basically my valedictory year, more or less. So that's how I've always seen it. That I do this for like half a decade, like with all my strength. I pour myself into it, and then I transition away. So the hope is that with the little work I've been able to do, there would have been one or two younger people coming up behind who will be even worse than I am, and who would have been energized to take off from where I stop. And hopefully it will even be one or two. Hopefully it will be 10 or 20, because that's ultimately what we hope for, I think.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ngozika. Igbo Basics, you're next.
Yeah, David, Dr. Damages, Rudolph Okonkwo. David, what you're doing is what I call a labor of love and destiny. I'm an old soldier on my second missionary journey down here in New Jersey. Listening to you for 3 hours, 11 minutes, and 13 seconds on a stretch, that is something that is unusual. But I did go through that. And that was in your what I now call at basicsexpress.com. It's the first slide. I call it 31113, consequences of an illegitimate president for Nigeria. And hearing you out and all your experience I look at you and I see what I now call your father's character continuum. That is my own coinage, not Zebrudaya Korikwe coinage. Why I term you as such is the story you told about your father and how he has signed up papers for somebody who was a land buyer, possibly former governor, maybe Bola or whoever it is, and he brought some entreaties. Please remind me if I'm wrong on that, but he has sent some gifts and your father turned them down. So I don't do that. So that's why I say your father's character continuum. Now, to my question, because looking at the work you do and the work that Dr. Damages do, you are the guys who are actually encouraging some of us who have actually, I wouldn't use the word thrown in the towel because all soldiers die. No, they never die. They just fade away. It's really Dr. Damages that brought me back into thinking, okay, we can continue with this journey. The question I have, because when I think about Delegewa, the rest of the people that has gone through as a result of the work that they do, I look at you and I pray God that may Almighty continue to shield you. The simple question I have here today is, on the man or woman, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, or whoever it is, as was being speculated and went to college or did not go to college, it goes to the question of, was this man birth certificate a baptismal certificate, or was he born in a hospital? Whoever it was, whether born in the hospital, or was it a birth certificate, or is it a case of certificate of age declaration? Have you looked into that?
All right.
So if I'm to understand your question, you're basically asking if there is any sort of birth certificate for him on file.
That is correct.
To the best of my knowledge, there isn't. I have seen no such document, and he himself has never actually tendered any kind of birth certificate in any official capacity. I've never seen one. I suspect that, like many other people from his generation at that time, from the place he came from, he may not even know his exact birthday. It's entirely possible that he may not know his exact birthday. There are many people from that generation who estimated their ages. So, and I believe that there's an almost 100% probability that any date of birth that he has provided in any official capacity is false. Right? And my reason for saying that is very simple. Depending on where he's submitting this information, there's always a different date of birth. He has submitted about 5 or 6 different dates of birth in different capacities in different places. So in the article that I published in November, where the story of the perjury on his ANEC EC9 came up, the date of birth provided on his ANEC EC9 form is 2 years. That there's a 2-year discrepancy between that date of birth and the date of birth provided to that was provided by Chicago State University in response to the subpoena. So the date of birth that they have on file there's a 2-year discrepancy from the date of birth submitted to INEC. That in itself is a different date of birth to that which he provided to INEC in 1999, which is also in itself different to the date of birth that he has provided in other places. So the date of birth that is attached, for example, to his one of the social security numbers linked to him in the US. So they're like 5 or 6 different dates of birth. So that only leads me to believe that this man doesn't actually know how old he is. He probably has just been estimating how old he is. He certainly doesn't know what his date of birth is, and certainly none of us does.
You see, I am one of those generation, in the sense that, but it should not be 5 years, 10 years, different certificates. I have one affidavit of age declaration, sworn in 1976. And that is what you will find on record all through life. It should not be different. And that came from my cousin who was born in a hospital. So his case, he has a certificate. I was already born before him, but it wasn't 1 year or 2 years or 3 years ago. So it's a problem. All we're asking is this man should show us if he has a certificate of declaration of age, that's no problem in the Nigerian context. You can do that.
I don't think he has that. And I think the reason he doesn't have it is because during those years when he should have sworn such a certificate or whatever, he was engaged in criminal activity. And this isn't an opinion. This is something that is on fact. It's on file. It's documented fact that he was engaged in criminal activity for basically the 80s, that entire decade. So I guess it's not difficult to see why, why it wouldn't be in a criminal's interest for them to have a known date of birth. It would be in the criminal's interest for them to maintain multiple dates of birth, because how do you maintain multiple identities? The building block of every separate identity is a date of birth. So the building block of every social security number, whatever, is a date of birth. So if you're maintaining multiple identities, as he was doing, then you obviously have multiple dates of birth. He was engaged in criminal activity. It's as simple as. And again, this is all documented. This isn't David Hundeyi's opinion. This is all recorded on file. So,
all right. Thank you, Ibo Basic. Thank you so
May
much.
God continue to guide you, David.
All right, Dr. David Okawa. David, go ahead. Unmute yourself, David.
So just a quick reminder that I might need to leave really quickly.
Okay, yeah, okay. All right, I understand. You actually went over. I'm sorry. Okay, we just take these two people here and then we end it. David Okafor, quickly, question, please.
So, Dr. Damages, I was saying that I want to apologize for my inability to appear in the studio for some time now. It's because of time factor.
I know. Just go straight to the question. He has to go. Thank you so much.
So, Mr. David, I want to thank you for the work you are doing. You're really a smart guy. I do not have so much questions to ask you, but I know you are doing a great job. And I'm a pastor, and I want to tell you that God will guide you and God will keep protecting you. One thing that disturbs my mind when I come to the social media concerning this past election, I hear people whom I believe that should have a sound mind making some unreasonable arguments about 25% in Abuja or not. In the wisdom of people who wrote that constitution, they knew that even if you are very popular in all the states in Nigeria, you are going to live in Federal Capital Territory. You must have to be popular in the Federal Capital Territory, because you can't go to all over Nigeria and be received. And when you come to the very Federal Capital Territory, when you are where you are supposed to be living, you will be very unpopular. This is why they said you must have at least 25% also in Abuja. And some people are putting this. They think this is not relevant. One thing I want to tell you is that the man Tinubu seems to be mysterious. He's a man with unlimited resources. And he has been using it to buy as many people and do as much damages all over his life. And now, I believe he has bought not only the judiciary, he has bought many people in the security departments of Nigeria, EFCC, DSS. He has bought himself through all these people. But I know that only people like you, who are equipped with the power to say the truth, can come out and help Nigeria as a whole to undo with this kind of character. So I'm encouraging you. I'm saying, do not be afraid. I don't have any so much questions to ask. Do not be afraid in what you are doing. There is always a powerful force protecting the man who is saying the truth.
All right, thank you.
So there is always a powerful force protecting the man who is saying the truth. And that force will continue to protect you. It will lead you wherever you are going. They can't assess you until all these things will be over. Tinubu, if he's sworn in, he's going to be also be the chief, he's going to be the leader of the whole nation. Besides being the leader of the whole nation, he will be in charge of the armed forces as well.
Chidi.
And this is not...
Dr.
Yes,
Chidi,
please.
we have to stop there.
Yeah?
So he has to go. We have to stop there. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, quickly, just
Thank
a question. Thank you. Quickly, your question, please. Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, since this is gonna be the final question, please allow me David. Thank you very much for carrying your cross. Igbo proverb says destiny is located. So that's yours. Thank you for taking your cross. My question is this: I follow you and I've read the articles. The Tinubu's article, the Chicago University article. From is it the Bradley College? Is it Bradley or whatever?
Richard J.
Richard Daley College. Is it that the female that went to a female went to Richard Daley and they used the female's result to enter Chicago State University, and then the female, and that's what you are trying to say, that if a female enters Chicago State University and the female graduate, do we have an evidence where the female is right now, or where she lived last? If it wasn't the female that graduated, if it was Tinubu that falsified the record and used it or took the record of the female and entered Chicago State University, and if he graduated from Chicago State University, is there a way that there's gonna be a criminal prosecution for forging the result, taking someone's result to enter another university, or is it possible to have a proceeding against Chicago State University for giving a certificate to someone who didn't merit the certificate?
So I think it's important to point out that there is actually no evidence that Chicago State University gave that certificate to the person now calling himself Bola Tinubu. If they had given him that certificate, I don't think he would have had any reason to go submit that ridiculous forgery that he submitted to INEC. So what I suspect happened is that the person who they have on file as Bola Tinubu, that person gained admission, who was a female, that person gained admission to Chicago State University after attending Richard Daley College. And that person was the person who was awarded that certificate. And then he then took on this person's identity, possibly after this person became deceased, because bear in mind that at the time, this was a very common thing that Nigerians used to do in the US at the time, where they would come into the US maybe on a visitor's visa or something, then basically take on the identity of a recently deceased person, a recently deceased Black person, and basically impersonate that person. So your name is Olanka Adeyanju, you come into the US, and then there's some guy called Jermaine Shoemaker, who died last week, like an African American or whatever. There are corrupt elements within the immigration service that will actually sell you this person's social security number and this person's details. So you can actually take on this person's identity as long as the person's death has not been acknowledged by the state yet. You then take on his identity, take on his date of birth, everything, and become that person. If you recall, after the September 11 attacks, when the Department of Homeland Security became very belligerent in the US, they went on a spree arresting a lot of Nigerians who had done that. So that was in the 70s and the 80s, a lot of Nigerians settled themselves in the US using those illegal means. So if that was what Tinubu did, it wouldn't have been a rarity at all. It was a thing that Nigerians used to do a lot at the time. So I suspect that's what he did. He might have even done it for multiple people, which is how come he was able to maintain multiple identities to support his criminality. So I don't believe for one second that he actually attended Chicago State University, or that Chicago State University gave him the certificate that was actually issued to the person who they admitted, the person known as Bola Tinubu. It's also important to point out that Chicago State University and Richard Daley College are what are known as HBCUs. HBCU is a historically Black college and university. And if you know anything or two about HBCUs in the US, they are not anywhere near as well funded as their white counterparts. So basically, what I'm trying to say in a very roundabout kind of way is that if you have enough money, it is very, very possible to corrupt an HBCU. Right.
So
So it is very possible. It's possible, for example, that you didn't attend university there, and you can go in there and pay somebody some money in the library department, and get them to put your picture inside the yearbook. It's very doable. You can get them to put your face in an alumni handbook or something. They can do that. But the real test is, can this certificate that is can you go and claim it? Because if he was able to go claim that certificate, if he was able to request a certified true copy of that certificate, there would have been no need for him to submit a forgery to INEC. There would have been no need for that whatsoever. But what he submitted to INEC was a blatant forgery, and a very poorly done one, in fact. So why would you even go to that stress of ordering a fake certificate from diplomamakers.com when you can just go to your university website, send them an email, pay the filing fee, and they will mail your certified true copy to you. Even I have done that before with the university hall. It's not a difficult thing to do.
Okay, is it possible for the university to sue someone for claiming that they went to their university and forging a certificate?
No, Okija, hold on.
So I think
David, hold
I
on.
think that's a U.S. law thing. I'm not an American lawyer, so I think it's a U.S. lawyer that will be best placed to answer that question. And I think because these offenses took place in the U.S., this is a U.S. jurisdiction thing. So I'm not sure there's anything those of us who are in Nigeria, in and around Nigeria, can actually do about it, unfortunately.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. There was a question. I think you already answered it in a way from the chat. There were a lot of questions on the chat I couldn't get to. But one was talking about Chicago State University and the fact that they had his picture there as someone that attended the university. So he was asking if it was possible for someone who didn't go there for them to put his picture. But I think you answered it already.
You pay. That's it. It's very simple. You go there, you walk in, you pay.
All right.
How much verification are they going to start doing? Digging through archives to verify whether you pay and you get your thing.
All right. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. I know you spent more than 30 minutes more than you promised, and I know you had other engagements. But we thank you, and hopefully in the nearest future you can join us again when we have more time. We have more than 15 people who are waiting. Unfortunately, I can't get to them. They wanted to ask you questions, but we appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So when we come back, we are going to continue the conversation. We will review what happened here today. All right. Okay, guys. I know it's not my fault, so it's not. I know everybody wanted to have an opportunity. For those that didn't get to, it wasn't intentional. All right. So let me hear from people who, first of all, who didn't get a chance to ask questions. What you think about the story? And let's start with you, Mark.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, Mark.
I think most of my questions is going to be probably a waste of time on the platform asking again, because I've asked them a lot on this platform, maybe 2 or 3 times actually. It's about the certificate, it's about the date of birth, and so on and so forth. But I wanted to get a specific response from David. But now that he's gone, I don't want to waste time.
Did you watch the whole interview?
Yes, I was here. I was watching. I was commenting in the chat, but I was backstage, so I couldn't ask it to him.
Okay. All right. And you didn't get the answer you wanted?
Yeah, I did, but my own would have probably been framed. My question would have framed a little slightly different, so I could get that targeted answer from him. But it's fine. It's fine. Unless you want to ask the question again for other people to answer.
No. That's that's it. If you go ahead.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. Um, there is nothing we have not heard that is, this is not surprising to us, honestly speaking. This has been going on even before Tinubu declared his intention to be Nigerian president. Um, Truth, like I always say, it's always easy to tell the truth, but when you start lying, it's gonna take like 1 million lies to cover one truth. I think I was on Daddy Freeze show one time, and something about certificate came up, and I said, "Look, if you ask me the school I went to in Nigeria, I will tell you, and I will tell you my classmates, all of, at least I can name up to 10 of my classmates. If you ask me the schools I attended here in the United States, I can tell you, and in fact, one of my classmates is here, and I keep in touch with some of our Nigerian classmates. I don't know why. I don't know why people still have doubts about all these things. If Tinubu, if all these things, allegations against him, if he feels that this is not true, just tell us this is your certificate. These are my classmates. These are my backup. So I don't know why people still have doubts about whether these stories are true, whether they are true or not. My concern about Tinubu's administration, like I said yesterday, of course, Tinubu will be sworn in as a president on the 29th. No doubt about it. I mean, unless if anything happened. But I see him being the next president of Nigeria. My biggest concern is the suppression of media, because I know that's going to happen. Thank God we're in the world of social media, so people can, be anywhere they want to be and say whatever they want to say. But people like David, who lives there in Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken, and other journalists, investigative journalists, what's going to happen to them? What's going to happen to their voice? It's just like you feel like this is going to be a glorified or military government coming in next month. So unfortunately, I don't know where we're gonna go with this. I don't know. I don't see Nigeria moving forward. Instead of moving forward, we're gonna go like 20 years backwards. Where we are today. Again, I'm an advocate of whether Paul like it or not, whether forefather like it or not. I'm always an advocate of this thing called One Nigeria is not working, and it's not going to work for us. The better we start going our separate ways, the easier for us. So I don't know, but that's where I stand. This is not news. If Tinubu feels that the people are lying against him, come out, tell us who your classmates are. I can proudly tell you my classmates, schools and degrees, they're all over our home. Show us your own. But if this is going to be a news for us, to me, honestly, it's not a news. We know Tinubu is lying. We know all these things are fake and forged in order for him to be the president. And this is where we are. And this is where Nigeria will never move forward.
Okay, thank you, Ife. Man of Prestige, you're next. I'm sorry we couldn't get you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I greet everybody, afternoon and morning. Yeah, I listened to the whole story from David. He's, in my own opinion, he's doing a great job, very interesting investigating journalists. I'm looking at Tinubu Live, that's supposed to be our president-elect, like if he said, in my own opinion, he's going to be sworn in as Nigerian president. So that's what it's going to be. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think he is. I mean, his life is just full of puzzlement. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, how can you be this controversial? Nothing about you is believable. I mean, starting from primary school and what's going on right now about this Guinea passport and all that kind of things. It's very, it's very puzzling. But what I was going to ask David, but I didn't have the opportunity to ask him, of course, there's a lot of people on this thing, is that what's going to happen if Tinubu decide to come to USA with what's going on about this civil case or indictment, whichever one it is, even I thought he forfeited that with the civil, discord, it's still something. Is he going to be able to travel to USA to attend the UN something or whatever? I don't know. How about the discord, or the, divergence surrounding his certificate? How is he able to get the certificate or whatever, So can USA government be able to, maybe retrieve that certificate that he have, the degree, the so-called degree that he has, I don't know, with all these discrepancies we have on his degree. I was going to ask him that, but he's not here right now. I just want to present my question to the panelists. Maybe we can discuss about it later. Thank you.
All right. Who is next? Let's man of Brazil. You've spoken, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. Who else has not spoken? I think everyone has spoken here. I guess I can. I wish this in Rudolph was around, but he's going to be coming back on. For me, I didn't want to come and harass the gentleman because I don't have any basis for it, and he seems to have done a brave job. Some people are just doubting whether what he said was accurate, whether it's true. But I think if it's not true, he knows he's risking his entire reputation on this one, because it's a very serious claim and it will have to be proven. And if it is true, okay, I think now that one is going to be damaging. If it is true, it's really going to be damaging. One, why does he need a foreign passport? Why did he accept it? And it's not that long ago too. It's a serious one. And I think, and if that technicality that is on the form that means that he has basically perjured himself, that could lead to serious disqualification. This issue here that we are looking at, and this is why I think this report is very, very important, and it needs to be confirmed. I hope that people are doing their due diligence now in Guinea to find out, direct information about this, because if it is true, it's explosive for sure. On a day, we just found out that Rivers State is probably one of the stolen states, that's in terms of flipping it to this in APC. So it could be this is getting too many banana peels all over the place for Tinubu now. And but we'll see, but I must say the guy is a brave man to come out and say something like this, and I hope he's doing his due diligence to make sure he is safe, because this is not something that you come out with, and this is the kind of stuff you want to see from journalists in Nigeria. Go and dig out all this nonsense that is going on, and I wish they brought the names of the people that have stolen our oil. Somebody please investigate and bring the names so that we know the people that actually stolen this oil. But we'll see, and I will leave it at that. I don't know, because I don't like making claims about stuff that I don't know a lot about. That's why I didn't want to venture into that. So I will leave it for Rudolph. Sorry, I just wanted to fill the space while nobody was around. And
yeah, I got kicked out. Thank you so much. It happens. I don't know what happens. Tosh, I think you're next. You haven't said anything. Tosh, go ahead. Did you watch the interview?
All right. I think. So far, so good. Good evening, everybody. So far, so good. About Tinubu's certificate or whatsoever has been in the public domain for a very long time. But it's just that a lot of people have not paid attention to it. While he was the state governor of Lagos State, was in around early 2000s, thereabouts. So, because at first, from the INEC form that he filled, he said he went to St. Paul Aroloya Primary School, and he went to GCI, and after that, Ganifawa Imi took it up, and everybody saw that he didn't actually attend these schools, and Bode George also, because he went to Government College Ibadan as well, and he knew that he was lying. So why is it that this time when he filled the INEC form, those two places were left blank? You understand? So he knew for him to have lied in the first place in his political career, he should be taken up. That was when I knew Nigeria politics is not something to write home about anyway. But and as well, someone of his age, as at that time in the 70s, like David just said, there's something called Historically Black College and Universities, HBCU, in the United States as at that time. You know that the African Americans were just coming out from Civil War struggle in the 60s to the early 70s. So how come because we know that during those times we have leaders who will go abroad, because most times our leaders usually go to the UK to school, hardly you find all these leaders then going to the United States. If anyone goes to the United States, they go to these Ivy League universities. So how come someone of that caliber will, reduce himself so much to Chicago State University? I'm sorry that I'm degrading the school. I'm not, but as at that time, no Nigerian will ever settle for that. They would rather go to even Morehouse College has more prestige than Chicago State University. So he was suffering from a lot of funding. So how come someone like that will go there and at the same time finishes there and claim that he works in Mobile? And if you say that how can you work in Mobile when you didn't come out from all these Ivy League universities? And as well, when you notice something about his CV, how can you be a chartered accountant and you don't have one single certification, professional certification? He doesn't have one. So it raises a lot of dust. There's something to this thing, and the rest is history. So I leave the rest for others too.
All right, thank you, Dr. Emeze. You next. Dr. Emeze, go ahead. Unmute yourself. Dr. Emeze, next.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Emeze, you have your YouTube is open, and then you are also on StreamYard. So turn off your YouTube. You have your YouTube is open, and then you are also. All right, let's keep him. Let's go to Prince Akwachi. Go ahead.
Good morning, Dr. Damages. I'm not gonna be mad at you in as much as I was boiling. I wanted to, not necessarily a question because I follow him on Twitter, so I know about most of the things that he's been writing, and I give him, kudos for being brave. Tush, I don't know if you're still on. You asked a question. Basically, if you follow the story, you will find out that the person who actually got Tinubu, in all these things, what I mean, when you trace the footsteps to getting that name, Bola Tinubu, was the Mogaji lady, the mother, the adopted mother, whatever it is. And the person he's bearing her name, because the person is a her, is a daughter to the woman's son who died. And then they wanted to move him, they said, okay, that's an opportunity to move him. So they moved him to the US. And when they moved him to the US, he has to assume the name of the girl who had already died. And that was how he got that identity. That, that aside, for me, it's so surprising that we are still dealing with the same man that have, a lot of cases to answer. And and the government of the day don't even care. They don't even care at all. Hope it's certain that they've been bribed or they've been bought over, so they don't care anymore. They don't care about any other person. But thank God that David even made it clear. He said even the rich men there, they are nothing. It's just a matter of time for them to know that they are nothing. They might have money and do all they do in Nigeria. One day the things that they do will catch up with them. That's all I can say for now.
All right. Thank you. Who did I miss? Anybody?
Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Meze. Yeah, go ahead.
Dr. Rudolph. Sorry, I wanted to make an observation. So, and it's something that I've discussed with your father on this platform before. So, I really wanted to know, this Kulaka guy, I really want to know, Why do you always allow him to come to this platform with him being unmasked? Why do you allow him to come to this platform in that form, dressed in that form?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've explained it before, and I said that and he wasn't the first person. When we started, what we said is that you must have your camera on, and there were two people actually who were putting on mask when they come up here, and we didn't remove them. We didn't say that was a problem as long as we saw the eyes, and I've had a lot of people complain about. So what we decided to do is we set up a panel. They are working on the new guidelines. So when they finish, I thought they would be done by March, April 1, but that didn't happen. Then when we finish, then we come up and we say these are the new guidelines. I'm leaving it to them. I don't want it to be my personal opinion. So that's the
Yeah.
situation.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. But the thing is, from what I understand, I feel this your platform is where civil people come and they discuss about issues. So looking at the way Kulaka comes to this platform dressed in that way, so it gives this impression that he is being disrespectful to everybody that is on this platform. And again, apart from that, it shows that even in the US that he is, where things are done in a sane and well-mannered form. So him coming to this place with with him being disguised in that form. So I think is something that shouldn't be accepted in a platform like this, where people come, civilize people are all around the world, they watch your platform, and when they see somebody like that, it put on this notion or this belief that he feels that he's better than every other person, that he can come to this platform and do anything that he wants to do, which I feel is very, very wrong, and it shouldn't be accepted. So I don't think if he has any fear, I think even he was if there's any fear that he feels he's having coming to this platform in that form. It's a place that civil people they just come to discuss issues concerning Nigeria. So he shouldn't have any fear. Nobody is going after him. When coming to this platform, he should open his face and come to this platform and discuss issues concerning Nigeria. So if he feels that this place is not safe for him to come and discuss issues concerning Nigeria, he shouldn't come. So I'm suggesting that please next time if he wants to come to this platform, he should come to this platform with his phone exposed, because him coming to this platform shows that he doesn't have respect for anybody on this platform, and it shows that he doesn't regard anything that you are contributing in this platform.
All right, Dr. Meze, thank you so much. Let me just announce that on the 30th of April, we have as our guest Dr. Professor Chika Onigwe. Where is the flyer? I'm trying to share something. The Professor Chika Onigwe will be our guest here on the 30th of April, Sunday. She wrote, she's an award-winning writer, and she just published a new novel called The Middle Daughter. I will request that if you want, if you care, you can get a copy of the book and join us in the conversation. She's also a columnist for the Daily Trust, I believe, and she will talk about the middle grounds within the Nigerian socio-political space. So we look forward to welcoming him. Before next week, I will announce our guest for next Sunday. I'm still negotiating some of the things that we negotiate with these guests sometimes. So, like I said yesterday, if you have any guests, interesting guests that you think we should have, and you have their contact, you can send them to me. And if you can reach out to them, I'm open to having anybody as much as possible, multiple voices, different voices on this platform. All right, Mama Nietzsche, what's going on?
You see, when it comes to collateral, usually it used to be a thorn in my flesh until I analyze it and I discover it's somebody who lack love at home and who lack attention. So he comes to this place to catch cruise looking for attention. So don't give him the attention anymore. Then he will rethink and reset his brain. Having said that, I am grateful for everything that is happening. If Tutu did not contest and steal my children's mandate, all these hidden kaka ones we won't know. So now, with his stealing our mandate, has opened up all this that has destroyed us as a nation. So we now know who our true enemies are. And we'll go after them one by one. None will be spared. And I mean it. None of them will be spared. Wherever they keep our resources, thank God, I have plenty children now that are intelligent and they are doing what they call investigative journalism. I will work with them. Our organization will work with them. And this impunity, now me and my children will stop them because we want a better Nigeria for ourselves. Those of us who are here in the Western world, we want to go home. And for us to go home, we must address this impunity and reset our country in the right trajectory. So those of you, one at this so una dey buga with me and my children's destiny. Una dey borrow anyhow. Tutu, una don borrow the recent one. Instead make una invest am for something wey go generate business opportunity and employ people. Una with una cabal, una wan monetize the money, una come say una wan divide am to people for 8,000. 8,000 to buy recharge card abi for wetin? This is just I don't know how we dey get all these done this. How we allow them to continue. And another set of done this one enter power. Mbanu. Kò lè ṣẹlẹ̀. If that is so they get power, but there is one supreme being that has the ultimate power. If he sees this breath from some of them, just for 30 minutes, road go clear. So there are different ways to kill this rat. This very rat will not become monster for us. When we say the analysis, when we get, we say, if he enter from May, all of us now we go suffer the thing. There are plenty ways to permit the rats. Either somebody help me do Abacha tea for him, or the Almighty God go seize him breath. All my children went in military because it is better military take over than this one. So anyway, when we take get this children, no dummy time. Look at all the atrocity on ground. In beginning, how can a Guinean man become president for Nigeria? How did that happen? And all of una do. I know say you be want do the good, but because they hold you for brokers, you not agree do the good. They go expose you now. We go so me and my children we go dig into the nyash like this, and we go publish you now home and abroad. Every work when I want to, I don't see one picking today, David. I don't get the other one somewhere. So I report I did there. As I discover the NASA, I go they add and join my list. Every step of the way where we go take, I go make sure they follow us from the IG office. Go anywhere I want to carry this matter go. When I want share, we want expose the monster behind our calamity that will now become the #1 poor capital of the world. How dare you people? Enough is enough. The battle line has been drawn. And all of you plus my children, when you turn us to this non-entity, we go see more. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mama Icho. So there were some things that he raised that I wanted to hear what people think. And one of them is we've been hearing these things, and it doesn't seem as if it seems as if they don't touch anything. What do you think? Is anybody here has any idea of what could happen? Will anything change what we know is going to happen on May 29th and moving forward? Anybody? Go ahead. Now.
If for me left alone, I always love to be optimistic. I sincerely believe things will catch up with him. Believe you me, I'm not saying I'm believing all the prophecies people were giving, but an instinct in me tells me there is still hope. Things are coming out, and things are coming out big time. That's all I can say for now.
Yeah, there were several questions I didn't get to because I wanted to give you guys a chance to talk to him. But the expiration date on the passports just asked is sometime in 2020. So it lasted from 2015, I believe, to 2020. So we don't have. Is any lawyer here with us? But people say that even if your passport is expired, it doesn't mean you are still not a citizen of that country. So, for instance, my Nigerian passport as of today is expired, but I don't think I feel like I'm no longer a citizen of Nigeria because it's expired. So people raise that issue that it's expired. So does that count as that he is not a citizen of that country? So I don't know if anybody has anything. Go ahead, Okija.
Okay, I think it depends on the country. I don't know how their constitution is. Like US, if you don't want to become, if you have a US passport and you don't want to become a US citizen, you have to write to the State Department, and then you have to return your passport, even if it expired. You have to return to them. I no longer want to be a US citizen, and then they will cancel out the passport and then remove you as a US citizen. So it depends on the country. So I don't know what. But as long as he I think it should be this. I think it's the same for every country. Even though it expired, it doesn't matter. You are still legally because you can always renew the passport. So technically, it's still if that was his passport, technically he's still like Guinean.
There are some people who are saying that passport does not mean the same thing as citizenship. Does anybody?
No, but I think what it means is this. What David was trying to say is this. From his tweets, he is saying that because in the INEC form, the question is, have you ever been a citizen of another nation?
It's perjury.
Yeah, it's not whether it's expired or not. It's just that the INEC form asks you, have you ever been a citizen of another nation? It doesn't ask you what year or a range. So, and he answered no to it, and he showed the form. So he has actually lied to INEC. And the question goes in two ways. It just didn't ask, have you ever been? I think it also asked, have you ever applied to be a citizen of another nation? And he still answered no to it. So that is a clear sign, that he, there it is. So there's no question about expiration on it.
Yeah, but there's another question some people are raising, which is the fact that you have a passport, does that mean that you're a citizen?
You have a diplomatic passport. That's the highest level of passport, and you are saying you're not.
Does that say that you're a citizen?
But if you're not a citizen of Nigeria, you cannot have diplomatic passport of the Nigerian passport.
Okay. Some people are raising that question. So
Dr. Damages, David raised quite a number of issues.
Right.
And because some of those issues I'm fully aware of, particularly the things that happened in the United States between 1977 up until, let me say now, in the 70s, people ended up having, like he explained to us, sometimes multiple identities and stuff like that, because the door was wide open. But that notwithstanding, all those are in the record of the United States. The US is a place that never forgets. If you have not dealt with this system here, if you like, shit 50 years ago, when something comes to the front burner, they will bring out all the pieces of whatever you think you may have been. Because it goes with both fingerprints. For you to be able to have a social security number in this country, you go through a lot. So those were some of the things that David dealt with. And coming to the issue of the citizenship, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not talking from the legal terms, for you to get a United States passport, for instance, you have to be a citizen of the United States, even if they are doing diplomatic anything. The nearest I have seen of recognition from, say, the United States is on a passport of a friend of mine who used to be an old governor of old Oyo State, number one. In his passport, to accord him that special status, they stamped on his passport, and that's the only one that I've seen like that, a friend of the United States. And that carries a lot of weight to wherever that person travels. So with the things that David brought on the table, the angle I was coming at it from, regardless of if Tinubu ended up assuming the identity of somebody who died, nothing is ever hidden forever. Those things come out. People know people. And when you talk about multiplicity, you can pay for somebody to put your photograph on a yearbook and things like that. But the reality is that if you went to a particular school and you are that kind of an active person, you will not only be on the yearbook, there will be a picture of you somewhere doing something that shows up in that particular institution within that period of time. So to me, you don't mess with the United States because your records will be brought out, especially when you are now an international figure. Those of us who were here in the 70s, if I pulled out my yearbook, because I was vice president of the student government, University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, a historically black college, and I can understand the things that David was discussing, but you will see activities through that period of the time that you are active on campus. You will hear people who have said they're your friends. This man, who else from the University of Chicago, who is talking about scientists, has come out to say, I went to school the same period of time, and Nigerians were highly respected during that period of time. When you could come into JFK with your naira, and the bureau de change is all over the place, scrambling for your naira. I bought dollar with 42 kobo to a dollar. So it's only Nigeria, and here's the problem we are looking at. It's only in Nigeria, pardon me if I'm wrong, and excuse me, allergy time, because I keep rubbing my eyes. Protect your eyes when you go outside. Presidency. What the hell is presidency? Do we have a president? We have a presidency? A group of people who have cordoned down the instrument of state, and they say presidency. Are we about to have another Yaradua? Or something worse than that? So we are in for a big trouble if this Nigerian state does not come clean. There is no way we have to continue looking for the president-elect if it is. There is no way. Can you imagine that Biden misses for 24 hours or 48 hours? Yeah, he can travel, go in and come out. Let's call a spade a spade. The onus is on Nigerians. The British, which has been on our case and continue to milk. It's only Nigerians, and thank God the Nigerians of today have come, the young folks, they are not going to take this line low anymore. Things has to change. The people who think they are constituting themselves into bringing in another Yaradua, they better think twice. They better think twice. So all hands on deck. All the records that are anywhere, even any of us, if you go in and you spend the time, you will find records that you'll be shocked. They exist here in the United States. Freedom of Information Act, just a request. He talked about asking a university to send you a certificate. There's a university will send you a certificate when you go through the process, pay and all whatnot. When I was going to do a master's degree at King University, I picked up the phone and called the registrar at the old school. This is 25, 30 years later. And a young lady there was able to recognize my name. He said, oh, Ahiki. oh, okay, I will do this, I will do that. Where do you want me to send this? She recognized who I am. And by the same token, I walk down the street, somebody identifies me and says, oh, I met with you at the University of Arkansas. That was almost 40 years ago. Yes, we did meet. What am I talking about? If Ahmed Tinubu cannot show us who were his friends at the University of Chicago, call a spade, please. Let Nigeria itself and those who wishes Nigeria well, let them call the situation out so that any other persons who have committed those kind of offenses, you can't have a ghost lead a country. We have to call a spade a spade. Did he have no friends at the university? Was the only person that attended that university? Come on, you're talking baloney here. And for May 29th, let us wait and see what happens. This is not a matter of prayers. I think they just claimed that Adamawa was nullified. Maybe Rudolph will give us that story about the lady that. So it's a whole lot of garbage that goes on in that country called our country, Nigeria. Please, I'm appealing to those who are still human beings in Nigeria to, for heaven's sake, tell the truth for once, for the future of our children, for the future of that country called Nigeria. I rest my case for now.
Damages, please, this is important. Was the passport issued in 2015?
Yeah, it was issued in, I believe, 2015. Yeah. Right.
Okay, in 2015, there was money sent by Alpha Beta to someone in Colombia in 2015. So I don't know if there is any connection. Did he use that passport to try to go to Colombia?
That's okay. That's an interesting. I don't know. I mean, these are things to look into. Abraham, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Damiris.
Abraham, where are you joining
nice
us?
Nice to be on the show. From Nigeria.
Of course, we saw the darkness, so that was
Can you hear me?
Yeah. We saw there was no light, so we guessed that must be Nigeria.
I'm on the road.
Okay. So, did you watch our interview with David?
Actually, I started at the beginning, but I was very, very busy, so I went off. I'm just coming back right now.
Okay. So, what do you think? What's going on in Nigeria? What part of Nigeria? What part of Nigeria are you in?
I'm in Benue State.
Benue. Okay. So, is everything calm in Benue after what happened last week?
Yeah, everything is calm.
Okay.
Is David Hundeyin still around, or he has gone?
No, he has gone. Yeah. You had a question for him?
Oh. Yeah, but okay. It's unfortunately he has gone.
So guys, you've heard it all, like I said initially, for me it's never a problem for him to have double citizenship. So the only problem there is that he lied to INEC. It is alleged that he lied to INEC, and this is one of the things that our politicians keep using against the Nigerian people. They are never plain. They don't come to the Nigerian people with clean hands. That is one thing. There are so many things hiding behind the scenes. There are so many things we don't even know that these are politicians do, honestly. And that is why our political environment has to be sanitized. It has to be sanitized. Thank God that the Nigerian youths have woken up. Nigerian youths have woken up, and I tell you, in the coming elections, in years to come, we have to start scrutinizing people we'll be giving our votes to, real scrutiny, because we can't just give power to people that will come and at the end they will just be thorns on people's flesh. We don't want cannibals, as our leaders. We want people that will come and have empathy. for the people. Have feeling. Put yourself in the shoes of the Nigerian people, and then you give them their own share of whatever you are getting from the government. But we have this political class that collects from the government, eats alone. They only know their family. Their children are abroad, they live in good houses. You see their children, even though they don't have anything doing, they will be riding big cars. Some of them fly private jets. These are the issues we are having, and that is what we want to end. For me, Bola Ahmed Tinubu would have told the world that yes, I have dual citizenship. In case even if he has more than two, he will just come with clean hands and tell Nigerians, see, I have this, and this is why I obtained the second one or the third one. But for them to come to INEC, and that's why we have so much forgery. Forgery everywhere. People want to get to power. They will forge all sort of certificates, even primary school certificate. People will forge. And that is why we really need Peter Obi and Dati Ahmed. They have to come and build institutions that have, characters that we can trust. They have to build strong institutions. Like INEC has to be a strong institution that will not take chances, that will not collaborate with these politicians, that will not work for them, that will not stand for them. But you can see from the look of things, INEC connived with our politicians to work against the Nigerian people. And these are some of the things we should reject. Honestly, we have to reject all this. So guys, this is where we are today in Nigeria. Honestly, we are just believing that the judiciary will look into all these cases, and do the right thing. I just pray that they've not bought our judges over. I just pray that our judiciary will stand on a neutral ground. I pray that they will consider the voice of the Nigerian people, and they will allow our voice. They will allow our voice to prevail. That is just my prayer. So guys, you've heard it for yourself. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification bell. Please give this video a like so that YouTube can recommend it to others, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you.